Breaking news, Steelers Nation. The countdown is almost over, and all eyes are locked in on what could be the final statement game before the real battle begins. The preseason journey is coming to an end, and this last chance could define not only who makes the roster, but who sets the tone heading into the 2025 season. The urgency is real, time is running out. Players are fighting, coaches are watching closely, and tomorrow night could make or break careers. But before we dive deeper into this breaking update, a quick reminder, if you're a true Steelers fan and you never want to miss the latest news, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to ring the bell icon so you'll always be the first to know. Alright, let's jump into the latest news. Thursday night will mark the end of the Steelers' 2025 preseason, with kickoff at 7 p.m. Eastern against the Carolina Panthers. Now here's where it gets interesting. Reports suggest the Panthers are planning to keep their starters on the bench. However, there's some buzz that head coach David Cannells might rethink that decision, especially since Carolina's first-team unit has been struggling in preseason. For Pittsburgh, though, the plan looks a little different. Coach Mike Tomlin hinted that nearly every healthy player is preparing as if they're going to see action, except for 4 key names: Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Cam Hayward, and TJ Watt. Those stars are locked down. Everyone else? Fair game. That means we could get a look at Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, Patrick Queen, Deshaun Elliott, Jonnu Smith, and Pat Freiermuth on the field. And let's be honest, that makes this just a preseason game a lot more exciting than expected. Because this isn't just about game reps. This is about making a statement. This is about proving who deserves to step into Week 1 with momentum. Now let me be clear, I don't need to see the stars out there risking anything in this final preseason game. The big names, the Pro Bowlers, the leaders of this team, they've already proven who they are. The number one priority heading into Week 1 is simple: health. Everyone getting through this last rehearsal without injuries, that's the real victory. Think about it. We've seen in the past how too many preseason snaps can take a toll, and while those extra reps might look good in August, they don't mean a thing if a key player isn't ready for September. That's why seeing guys like Jalen Ramsey or Patrick Queen in this game doesn't exactly move the needle for me. Their impact will be felt when the games actually count. But here's the twist: Coach Tomlin left the door open. He hasn't ruled out giving some of those veterans a few snaps. It's a calculated risk, and it adds another layer of intrigue to Thursday night. And while the spotlight always falls on the stars, let's not forget the other storyline unfolding: the battle for roster spots. With 2 preseason games and an entire training camp behind us, the 53-man roster picture is starting to take shape. After combing through the depth chart, I've got 42 names that feel like absolute locks. No questions asked. That leaves 11 spots still hanging in the balance, and that's where things get fascinating. These aren't just names on a list, these are players who could be fighting for their NFL careers in this final game. From quarterbacks to special teams, every snap could tip the scale. Speaking of quarterbacks, there's a wrinkle worth keeping an eye on. With Will Howard's injury situation, the Steelers may have to make an adjustment. That could mean keeping Skylar Thompson as a temporary third quarterback if Howard lands on short-term IR. It's one of those subtle but important roster decisions that can shape the opening weeks of the season. When the dust finally settles, I believe the Steelers' quarterback room will be set with 3 names: Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, and Will Howard. The reason is simple: once Howard comes back from IR, there has to be a roster spot waiting for him. That means Skylar Thompson's future hangs in the balance. Either he's traded or released, but carrying 4 quarterbacks just isn't realistic. At running back, the picture looks much clearer: Jaylen Warren, Caleb Johnson, and Kenneth Gainwell. Those 3 have separated themselves from the pack. Receiver is where things start to get interesting. The locks, at least in my eyes, are DK Metcalf, Roman Wilson, and Calvin Austin. Only 3 may feel light, but those are the names you can write in ink. More will make the roster, of course, but beyond those 3, it's still wide open. Tight end? That's simple: Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, and Darnell Washington. A strong trio that gives the offense flexibility. On the offensive line, there's a good blend of starters and depth. The solidified group looks like this: Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fotanu, Ryan McCollum, and Spencer Anderson. Switching to the defense. Defensive line, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, DeMarvin Leal, and Yaya Black. Edge rushers, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Jack Sawyer, and Nick Herbig. Inside linebackers, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, and Malik Harrison. Cornerbacks, Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and Brandon Eccles. Safeties, Chuck Clark, Juan Thornhill, Deshaun Elliott, and Miles Killebrew. Special teams is more straightforward. You've got Chris Boswell locking down the kicking job and Christian Kuntz handling long snapping duties, though there's competition in camp. Punter remains unsettled with Cam Johnston and Corliss Whiteman still battling it out. That's 42 names right there, players who feel locked into this roster, which leaves 11 spots up for grabs. And the first bubble name I'll slide into that list is Scotty Miller. He's not a lock in my book, but he's played his way into serious consideration. In fact, you could argue he deserves that lock status already. One of the names that has really turned heads this summer is Scotty Miller. The reports out of camp have been glowing, and he's backed it up with solid preseason play. That momentum could very well secure him the role of the fourth wide receiver on this roster. But the bigger question is, what happens next at wideout? Do the Steelers stick with just 5 receivers? Do they add a veteran like Gabe Davis if he becomes available? Or could they surprise us by keeping 6? Right now, the 5th spot looks like a battle between Robert Woods and Ben Skowronek. Both bring something different to the table. Woods has the savvy and experience, while Skowronek brings size and toughness. It's a decision that may come down to what kind of balance the coaching staff wants in this room. Now, shifting gears for a moment, don't overlook Connor Heyward. He's one of those players who quietly carves out a role because of versatility. He can line up in different spots, he's tough on special teams, and yes, his last name carries some weight in Pittsburgh. Add in the fact that Aaron Rodgers seems to like him, and the fit in Arthur Smith's heavy personnel scheme makes perfect sense. Pencil him in as the 44th man. Back to the offensive line, depth is critical, and this unit is starting to solidify. Alongside the names we already know, Andrus Peat has stepped up with a strong preseason showing. Behind him, Dylan Cook looks like the favorite to grab one of those last backup roles. When you stack them with Ryan McCollum and Spencer Anderson, you start to see a line group that not only has starters, but also the kind of depth you need for a long season. That gives us another handful of roster spots accounted for, but the final few decisions, especially at receiver, could be some of the most fascinating to watch as cut-down day approaches. With the offensive line, the numbers are starting to settle. When you factor in the 5 starters and the 4 backups, Andrus Peat, Dylan Cook, Ryan McCollum, and Spencer Anderson, that gives us 9 total linemen. Both Cook and Calvin Anderson brought versatility to the table, but for now I give the edge to Cook. That pushes the roster count to 46 names when you add him and Peat alongside Connor Heyward at 45. So who else fills the final slots? Let's shift to the defensive line. Right now we've got the locks, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, DeMarvin Leal, and Yaya Black. But that unit needs more depth. I'm giving the next 2 spots to Logan Lee and Daniel Aquall. That strengthens the trenches and takes the tally up to 48 players. The last D-line spot is tricky. It could go to Isaiah Loudermilk or DeMarvin Leal, and honestly, it feels like a coin flip at this point. Both have flashed, but not consistently, so that decision may come down to the very last day. In the secondary, one name that continues to stand out is Beanie Bishop. He's been flying around in camp and preseason, earning every bit of praise he's received. He feels like a safe addition, which bumps the count to 49. At inside linebacker, there's another debate. Do the Steelers go with youth like Carson Bruner, who could develop, or do they stick with the proven grit of Mark Robinson? My gut says Robinson because he's shown he can handle the role when his number is called. That secures 5 inside linebackers and keeps the defense balanced. That leaves just 4 spots remaining, numbers 50 through 53. And this is where the cornerback battle heats up. The final spot likely comes down to Corey Trice, Dante Kent, or James Pierre. Trice has been slowed by injury. Kent has missed time as well, but Pierre has stayed healthy and available. Sometimes availability is the deciding factor. So as we stand, the roster is nearly built, but those last 4 spots could tell us everything about how this team plans to shape its depth heading into Week 1. When it comes to the last cornerback spot, the question becomes, what do you value most? Do you bet on the upside of Corey Trice, the investment you made in Dante Kent as a 7th-round pick, or do you stick with James Pierre, a veteran who not only stays healthy, but can actually contribute on special teams? For me, the safe call is James Pierre. He might not have the ceiling of Trice or Kent, but when you're talking about the final few roster spots, availability and versatility often win out. Pierre gives you depth on defense and snaps on special teams that matters. Slot him in as player 51. Now, after recalculating, that leaves just 2 spots left. Here's where things get tense. At wide receiver, it comes down to Ben Skowronek versus Robert Woods. Woods has the resume, but he hasn't shown much in camp. Skowronek, on the other hand, brings blocking ability, toughness, and the kind of role player mentality that fits Pittsburgh's identity, even if he's been banged up. Add in the fact that the Steelers already have receiving options in Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, plus backs like Kenneth Gainwell catching out of the backfield, and it makes sense to prioritize a grinder like Skowronek over a declining vet. That gives him the edge for the 5th receiver spot. And then we arrive at the final, nail-biting decision, the last defensive lineman. Earlier we had Isaiah Loudermilk and DeMarvin Leal circling this conversation. If the staff has confidence in Yaya Black stepping into a bigger role, that could tilt the decision toward Leal, whose versatility flashes more upside. But Loudermilk has size and a steady presence that coaches sometimes trust. It's one of those choices where the coaches have to ask themselves, do we want reliability or do we want potential? That answer may very well decide who becomes the 53rd man on the roster. When it comes down to that very last roster spot, the debate really boils to one choice, DeMarvin Leal or Isaiah Loudermilk. Loudermilk is steady, reliable, and you know exactly what you're getting. But Leal? He brings versatility. He can line up as an interior lineman and even slide out as a pseudo-edge rusher. The talent was always there coming out of Texas A&M, and while he hasn't lived up to the full hype just yet, his ceiling is undeniably higher. Pair that with the presence of Yaya Black as a run-stopping interior piece and Daniel Aqbal providing size inside, and it makes sense to lean toward the player who gives you the most flexibility. For me, that's DeMarvin Leal. He takes the final spot. And with that, the 53-man roster is complete. Here's how it breaks down. Quarterbacks, 3. Running backs, 3. Wide receivers, 5. Tight ends, 4. Offensive linemen, 9. Defensive linemen, 7 including Leal. Edge rushers, 4. Inside linebackers, 5. Cornerbacks, 6. Safeties, 4. Special teams, 1 kicker, 1 punter, 1 long snapper. That's the roster as it stands right now. Of course, the work isn't done. The Steelers could still shake things up, especially at wide receiver. If a veteran becomes available, a name like Ben Skowronek or even Scotty Miller could be the odd man out. And don't rule out another move along the offensive line. A veteran like Dalton Risner has been circling the market, and while he isn't a superstar, 80-plus career starts in the NFL speaks for itself. If Pittsburgh decides to bring him in, it could mean someone like Dylan Cook loses his place. But as of today, this 53 feels strong, balanced, and built to compete. The foundation is set. Now the only thing left is to see how this group answers the bell when Week 1 finally arrives.